Hello, hello. It's a little echoey and feedbacky in here, so we'll see how it goes. I would like to see by hand how many people, this is the first convention like this they've ever been to. It's really weird because I'll be at 15 this year, and most of them I'm a sponsor, and I'm very proud to do that. I think that, yeah, it's good. Thank you. As we move towards a more secular world, we can solve more fucking problems. Oh, I swear, so you've been warned in advance. So I think we should do that, more of that, go to more conventions. Thank you for coming here. It's weird for me because I know so many people that I sometimes want to get a grip on how many people are new, and it's the vast majority of this crowd, so thank you for coming. Of course, thank you for Thomas and all the people that have worked so very hard to do this. You know, I just showed up, so I did nothing, but Thomas is very kind. A lot of people did a lot of work to make this happen. Also, of course, I'm a big believer in tithing. I shit you not. You should give 10% of your money to something you believe in. It doesn't have to be this. It can be the SSA we talked about. It can be Foundation Beyond Belief. There's all kinds of organizations out there. My business does give 10% of its gross revenue. Gross, not net, because that's what God would want. To conventions and things like that, because this is where my heart is at conventions, and I love being here. The other thing that's really weird is when I give talks. I don't know about you. I've done this for a very long time, and I give quite a few a year. I still get a little nervous. And you know, about 20 minutes before the talk, I'm thinking, do I really have to pee? And I'm not sure. Am I just nervous? And I hate uncertainty. And it bothers me. It drives me crazy. I guess that's why I'm not religious. And I found out there's only one real way to solve that problem. So right before each talk, I drink 32 ounces of water. Now, there's no doubt. So if a little later I start crying, you know why. It's not you. The other big question people have is, really, what the fuck is a finance guy doing at a skeptic reason convention? It's a long story, which I'll spare you, but the basic idea is that I believe that skepticism and rational thought should be applied to more than just Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. It's great to be applied to religion. I'm all for that. One of my other talks, if you happen to run a group, is how to get kids out of religion. Not just your kids' friends, your friends' kids, nieces, nephews, grandkids. Great talk. I'd be happy to give it for you. But there's a lot of things in the financial world that are scams and bullshit, and we're going to go over a few of those. And so, you know, people wonder, why do I do this? And the big part of it comes from when I was growing up. My dad was a stock-picking genius, and I grew up wondering, how does he do it? I mean, he spent hours a week going over data and charts and tracking numbers, and before spreadsheets, you know, pencil and paper and a slide rule, and he's trying to figure out which stocks to buy and when to buy them and when to sell them. And we'd always hear these stories about these stocks that went up 2, 3, 10 times, all this money he made. And I just idolized my dad. And I came home from my first year of college in the summer, and he says, son, I'm going to show you all of the investments and where they're at, and so in case I get hit by a truck, you can take care of mom and your brothers. I'm like, oh, I finally get the secrets. And I'm starting looking through things, and I go, oh, what is this stock here? And he goes, oh, yeah, that one's worthless. That one didn't do so well. I'm like, I never heard that story. And they had this other stock, and I go, and he says, that's worth 5 cents a share. It would cost more to sell it than it's worth. Oh, I didn't hear that story. And company after company he bought at the wrong time. He bought when they were hot, sold them when they went down. And it kind of crushed me that I thought he was a magic man with stocks. And like every human, you know, when you go fishing, you got the big fish. When you buy stocks, you don't tell people you bought a stock that went bankrupt. You tell the good stories. It was selection bias, I learned later. But he had one investment that did really, really well. It was called an index fund. This was back in the late 70s. And this started me down this path of fascination with what is the best way to invest. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of that information, but then a lot of things to look out for. By the way, this is a picture of my dad. Unfortunately, he died about 3 years ago, but this was a couple years before that. He was working at a children's science museum. And that's how dedicated he is to education and teaching people. And my claim to fame is that my dad helped build the Saturn V rocket. Right? For those of you who accept that we went to the moon, right? He helped design the fuel cell system for the second stage. But I'm going to talk to you about how to money. Someone else came up with this phrase, and I loved it so much they gave me permission to steal it. I'm going to teach you how to money. It's real simple in general. It's the specifics that always get you. First thing is you got to save money. If you don't have any money to invest, you can't invest. So you've got to save some money. You have to invest, and that's what I'm going to talk about mostly today is how to invest and how to avoid problems. And you need time. Regularly, I have people come to me that are a year or two from retirement and they want to start saving. I can't do magic. I mean, that's tough. If you want help with the first part, how to save, I recommend this book. I'll leave it up for a second if you want to take a picture. If you're just getting started, if you haven't figured out how to save or how much you need to save, The Richest Man in Babylon. It's real cheap on Amazon. I think the audiobook is like $3. The paperback is $7 or $8. My son told me, and I didn't check right before I left, that it was free on YouTube. Someone read it because the book is that old. But it's still sound. The advice is fantastic. Check that out. It's also a great read because it's stories, and they're really well done. So investing skeptically is what I call my process, and I use what I call science-based investing. You can go through, and there's data, and people actually do research on investing, just like they do in other parts of science, and find out what works and what doesn't. But no one is paid to tell you about it. You don't go read the investing journals. You happen to run into some dude who's a friend of a friend, and he tells you about a hot stock pick that he's got. That's not investing. Maybe it's salesmanship. A lot of people that I've talked to in the industry, they don't get paid to know how shit works. They get paid to sell you something. They're salespeople. And I tell people all the time, if you go to a Chevy dealership and you ask anyone at that dealership, what's better, a Chevy truck or a Ford truck? You know they're going to say a Chevy truck. You expect that. That's okay. That's what their job is. But when you go to any one of these big houses, A.G. Edwards, Edward Jones, Franklin Templeton, you don't know that they have a business relationship with a half a dozen or maybe a dozen mutual fund companies. And if they recommend anything else, they don't get paid. So they're not working for you, they're working for the company to sell things to you. Just to clarify, Polaris is a registered investment advisor. The state of Illinois tells me that I have to tell you that as soon as I mention my company, so there it is. The funny thing is that this information is for educational purposes only. Get little disclaimers. This does not constitute actual investment advice, no matter how good it sounds. Please consult with your own financial advisor before taking any action. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Oops, we went too fast on that one. So there are the disclaimers. And now we have the guru sitting on the top of the mountain. The businessman comes up and he says, buy low, sell high. Is it that simple? Well, yeah, it kind of is, but we make it complicated as humans tend to do. And speaking of complicated, I'm going to tell you about a thing called guaranteed mutual funds. So we're going to have a little fun with that. And I've got some monopoly money because I can't trust real money in any one of your fuckers' hands because you'll steal it. Goddamn heathen. So I got to have it a volunteer. This young lady here. I normally have a cordless mic, so I want to see if we can hear you. Can you talk? And
Hey.
Do you guys hear her? Yeah. Okay. Have we ever met before?
Yeah.
No.
Nope.
No. Okay. We talked about this specifically, and okay, you know, it's the stress of the moment. Anyway, I've got some monopoly money.
Before we start, can I just announce that he picked me because I said I have horrible math skills and it's going to just humiliate me, but he said that's what he wants.
Yeah. It's patriarchy. It's all good. Yeah, I appreciate that. That helps a lot. Yeah, we'll wait. Now this is the part where I can tell how anal retentive they are because they've got to put the money in order. And this is not a gender thing. Men do this too. You put it in order, you got to count it, bank face it. And unlike American currency, it doesn't have anything on the back. All right. You know what, let's come in the middle. It's better lighting. What do you guys think? Better lighting? Walking backwards. This is the University of Wisconsin? What am I getting? Washington. Wrong state. Thank you so much. I hadn't figured that out by myself. Can you count the money, please, and verify that there's $140? Keep it in mind that we've never met. She forgot already. 12, 15, 18. I have only 1 hour. Yeah, just say yes. All right, while she's counting, she's going to invest $100. She's managed to save $100, and she found a really good financial advisor. She shows up with her $100, and she's going to buy a thing. Yes, thank you. She is going to buy what's called a guaranteed mutual fund. And this mutual fund guarantees her $100, and it's going to guarantee her 40% return in 10 years. I know, it's amazing. 4% a year, and this is where the skeptics always go, 4% a year over 10 years is not 40% because of compounding. Yes, I got that. I know it's really 3.4%. And I tell her, of course, that the part of the money is invested in the stock market, and if it goes up, she could make even more money than that. Not really. But she's so happy, she takes the 72-page prospectus that I give her, and she signs the last page saying that she read everything. You read everything?
Sure.
Right. And she signs the document, and she's very happy. And what she has now is the $140 that she expects, that she thinks that she's going to have after 10 years, right?
All mine.
All yours. So, of course, I always tell you it's a new product, stocks and bonds, AAA rated, totally safe. It's all guaranteed, right? So what could go wrong? There's a 72-page prospectus. I got to keep up with this, right? Oh, if you don't stay in 10 years, you pay a 10% penalty. So shh. That's in the prospectus. A salesperson may have forgotten to mention that. There might be a few things the salesperson forgot to mention, like the fact that there is an 8% load. You know what a load is? No. Load is money you pay up front to give the salesperson a commission. Like anytime you do business, the customer pays for everything. No matter how fancy you want to make it, the customer pays for everything. And so you've got to pay me my commission. That's $8. Okay. Yeah, I remember telling people, it's a load of, you know what? That's the one time I don't swear. I don't know why. But so I've got the $8. Now, Tracy, we'll get to the microphone. This is where the math starts.
Great.
How much did you invest?
Should I tell the answer I said last night?
You should.
Okay, $100.
$100. No.
And then I corrected myself.
And you said 108.
I included that at least, and then.
The right answer is?
Yeah, that's what I said, right?
Yeah.
108.
Yeah, that's not the right answer.
Yeah.
What is the right answer?
I don't remember.
Anybody know? 92 is what you invested. Because I took 8 first.
Yeah.
And people don't realize this comes out first, so you invested 92. Now, because you invested 92, not 100, you don't make $40. You make $37 because you make 40% on 92, not 100. So you got to give me $3 more.
That's still good.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. You are so excited about this. I love the. So she had to give me $8. I'm going to probably do this the whole time here. She had to give me back $3. Now, the other thing that's funny, you love this. All this money is invested in mutual funds. Mutual funds have expense ratios. The average in the industry is 1.5, 1.6. This one's a little higher. It's 1.8. But you're so happy with this glorious product that you don't mind paying. And remember, if you pull out early like a good Catholic, you'll have... Thank you. That worked better than I thought. You'll have a 10% penalty. So you don't want to do that. So you've got to pay the expense ratio every year. 1.8 times 10, $18. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Now, Tracy, do you own a car?
I do.
Yes, good for Tracy. Do you have insurance for that car?
I do.
Okay. Your insurance protects the car, protects you. And this is a guaranteed mutual fund. It's guaranteed. Guess who guarantees it?
You do.
Tracy does. That's 1.5% a year. Over 10 years is $15. So you got to give me another 15.
Why need change?
Now she's worried about her money. All right. Now, this is where it gets really fun. You guys ready? Most of this money is invested in a thing called zero coupon U.S. bonds. You know what those are?
Nope.
Anybody know what zero coupon bonds are? Got a couple. Yeah, just a couple. Most bonds, you buy them, say, for $10,000, and they pay interest every 6 or 12 months. Zero coupon bonds, you buy at a discount, and then 10 years later sell them for $10,000. The IRS has decided they don't want to wait to tax you. So they created a whole new category called imputed interest, where they calculate the interest you would have been paid if you would have been paid it, and they tax your ass on it. So you pay tax on money you have not got yet. So as you can imagine, no one in their right freaking mind now buys zero coupon bonds unless you're a big financial or investment company, because the investment company keeps the profit and you keep the tax, which means Tracy owes another $8.
I need change.
What do you get? What do you got? You got 20?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, now Tracy, counting again, how much do you have?
I have
Uh-oh.
$88.
All right, we did it just right. Everyone give Tracy a big hand. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Well done, Tracy. Anyone heard of FINRA? Nobody. Okay. FINRA is the watchdog organization over the industry. It's staffed by people in the industry because that's how you make sure it's safe for other people. They have a consumer alert page where they tell people not to buy these things. So if you think this is too fantastically awful to be true, Google FINRA, Guaranteed Mutual Fund, and you will see people in the industry actually telling you not to buy what the industry sells. So it's all there. That's part of the science-based investing. Almost everything I'll talk about is referable and citable, and if you can't figure out how to find it, you can let me know. I'll show you how to get links to it. Of course, in this case, the dog says, let's change our strategy. Maybe I'll do the investing, and you go fetch the paper. Variable Universal Life is another one of these products. I often tell people the longer the title of the product, the less likely you want to buy it. I was in a grocery store, and this guy standing behind me, and when you happen to talk to normal, average people, I get a little scared, right, in the grocery store. And he starts telling me about the fact that his dad died and left him $600,000. I'm ashamed to admit it. My first thought was $600,000. Huh. But thankfully, I pushed that down, and I did the respectable thing, and I said, I'm sorry for your loss. Just leave it at that. No big deal. And he says, that's okay. I bought a variable annuity, and they gave me a $15,000 signing bonus. I've done this 20 years, and I never heard of a signing bonus before. And I thought, what is he talking about? It's just an amazing thing. I thought, you didn't just get drafted by the NFL. You know, you didn't take it to the man. Guess where that $15,000 came from? That came out of your pocket. And of course, as I look back at my screen, I'm realizing I'm telling the wrong story for the slide. So when we get to that story, just remember back a few minutes earlier. Stan is one of those guys that came to me at 60 and wants to retire at 62 and doesn't have much money. He has $100,000 of insurance that has a cash value of $30,000. And I said, well, how are you paying that for each year? And he says, oh, it's just $500. And I said, there's no way at the age of 60 you can get $100,000 of life insurance for $500 a year. And he says, I've been paying that for 30 years. Oh, well, 30 years ago, that might be the right number. So we called his insurance agent, and the guy says, well, he pays $500, but the other $5,000 that's necessary to pay the premium for someone who's 60 years of age comes out of his cash value. And of course, as you age, your life expectancy goes down, and every year he's older, his fee goes up. So in 5 years, this cash value is going to go to zero. So I asked the insurance agent, what happens when the cash value goes to zero? And he goes, no problem. He could liquidate the policy for nothing, or he could pay the higher premium, which might be $6,000 or $7,000 by then. And so Stan says, well, what do I do? I go, well, you got two choices. You hurry up and die, or you live a long time and you get nothing, or you could take the $30,000 out. And he's like, well, what should I do? And I said, I'd take the $30,000 and invest it. And we talked about it for a while, and he said he needed to think about it. He calls me a couple days later, and he says, I went and talked to the insurance guy, and we pulled the money out, and I bought an annuity with it. So the salesperson made another 10, 15% commission, and he ends up with even less money. And he told me he was going to get 8% interest every year on this annuity. The only way you can do that is if it's a single life premium that's paid to you as long as you live, and when you die, your descendants get nothing, and your $30,000 disappears. So his stated purpose was to have this money for his wife and 2 daughters. He will now get nothing from it because he didn't understand. And I relate this to religion because when I told him facts, he didn't want to fucking hear it. It upset him, and he threw up blocks mentally, without even knowing it, that I should not listen to Phil, and I should go back to the guy who promises me shit and give him more money. And that's what he did. This is a picture from the Creation Museum, Ken Ham's. I just thought it, kind of played with the whole makeup bullshit kind of thing. Return of premium term life insurance. This is another one of those things you may have heard people say, buy term and invest the rest. And the industry knows that, and so what they do is they make term plus, they make return of premium term. I know he's walking up the stairs, what the fuck? The whole audience. But at least some of you are looking, so I know you're still awake. That's good. So return of premium term, it's term with extra features. As soon as you add extra features to term, it's not fucking term. Term, you pay like car insurance. You pay for a year or 6 months. When it's over, you get nothing. That's what insurance is supposed to be. But this is compared to regular term, where maybe you pay for 30 years, and if you are lucky enough to live, and your 30-year policy ends, you have nothing. You bought 30 years of insurance. That's what you bought. And it's very, very affordable. But if you buy return of premium term, you pay, and say you live, they give you all of the money back, every single dollar. It's very, very easy for insurance people to sell because you get all of your money back. What could be wrong? You have insurance and you get all of your money back. Now, the trick is that it costs a little bit more. And so it might cost, say, $1,100, which is like, well, it's double, but in 30 years, I get $33,000 back. So no harm in that, right? I'm out a little bit more, but I get it all back. It's all good. But instead, if you invested that difference, and you went back to the old philosophy of buy term and invest the rest, and made 10% a year, which is the market average, you would have $100,000. Instead of the $33,000 the insurance company would give you back. So in this case, the insurance company makes, what, $69,000 on your money, and you make $33,000 on your money. They make more than twice what you make on your money. Magic. Absolutely magic, and you're happy about it. Now I'm in the grocery store. Remember that story from before? Okay. Guy, dad died, left me $600,000. I'm sorry for your loss. Okay. Whew. And he says, I bought an annuity. I got a $15,000 signing bonus. You're not in the NFL. And he says, last year, I made $30,000. Now, this was a couple years ago, so we had just finished 2013. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that 2013, the market went up 32%. He could have made $200,000, but he made $30,000. And he was ecstatic about it. How do you explain that to somebody in the grocery line that he lost $170,000 of income that year? And the insurance company gets to keep it. Now, it is true, there might be a year where it's down 5 or 10%, and they'll either give him nothing or a smaller amount. But if you miss all of the upside potential year after year after year, they can cover the downside because they have all your money. That's how some of these things work. And so again, I make this analogy that he gets to hear what he wants to hear. Anybody recognize this place? Very well done. This is the whole Vatican complex. Just to give you a size of scale, you see this level right here? Those are people. Well, actually what you see is the railing. The people are about that big. That ball up there is about 20 feet tall. It's an enormous building. It's gorgeous. You should go there. Give them $20 to go see it, but that's all the money the Catholic Church gets from me. Because this is one thing I hear all the time, but the stock market is risky. Yeah, fuck yeah, it is. And anyone that tells you it's not risky in the short term is selling you something. It is risky. And like any good tool, you should use it for the way it's designed to be used. You don't take a hammer and do surgery with it. But people don't understand this all the time. My friend Jane came to me, and she says, Phil, I took your advice. And I said, oh, shit. Now I know I'm in trouble, because if she took my advice, the first piece of my advice is talk to me. So I know she didn't follow that. The second thing is she took all of the money she had, every single dollar she had, $5,000. She bought one company. A bunch of shares of one stock because the broker told her it would double in 6 months. Now see, the good skeptic, the first thing they should go is, well, wait a minute. That doesn't work that way. But she didn't have that thought. She's used to being told facts. She accepts them as true. And she uses that valuable information to make a decision. They said it's going to double. She bought it at half price. Now, she happens to sell Mary Kay for a living. No problem with that, but I relate this because I could have a moment with her. I said, if you do a session and someone wants to buy a kit, what might that kit cost a person? She says, $100. I said, and what does it cost you? And she goes, well, it's $50, and I make $50. That's how I pay my bills and stuff. And I go, not a problem. Every store marks things up. That's how they pay for the store. I said, but next time you sell one of those kits, I want you to sell it for half of its value at $25. She goes, why the fuck would I do that? Why would someone sell you a stock for half of what it's really worth? That doesn't make any sense in any reality. But she was excited, and we went and pulled up information on this stock, and you can see here, it used to be worth $1. When she bought it, it was 34 cents. She paid 50 cents. And the guy told her it was worth $1. Now, this company happened to be an open issue, which means they can sell stock forever as long as they're in business, which is a bad, bad warning sign. So if you ever get involved in that, run away. And we did a little research on the company, and here's what they do. They're working on a proprietary technology to harvest the constant and powerful static electricity that is formed in the Earth's atmosphere. What? With a high-altitude weather balloon and a conductive cable in contact with the ground unit. So they're going to take a weather balloon, fill it with helium, float it up a couple of miles with a couple of mile-long cable. What could go wrong? With a 2-mile-long cable hanging in air, assuming the balloon could even lift it. But they're working on that. It's got a recoil, and it just spools back up like a vacuum cleaner hose or something. This is the picture they had on their website before the company went broke. See, they've got the cable. That's a thick bitch, right? You know, just going up to the sky. And there's a balloon. You know when there's the most electrostatic energy in the atmosphere? Thunderstorms. You know how weather balloons do in thunderstorms? They don't. Wind shear rips them apart, and they fall to the ground with a 2-mile-long cable. And she doesn't see any problem with this. She thinks this is a great investment. She's going to double her money. So that's where your skepticism can help you do it. Mutual funds reduce risks. So there's the risk of the individual stock. Oh, I forgot to tell you that lady that bought that $5,000. The reason she had $5,000 is she stopped paying her mortgage. She stopped paying her mortgage because her house was about to be repossessed, and she thought it would be better to save the cash instead of paying the mortgage for a house she's about to lose. Not a bad strategy, quite frankly. The reason she couldn't pay the mortgage is because her husband was in jail, I shit you not, for doing cocaine and hookers. He'd embezzled millions of dollars from his employer. They were not happy. So he's in jail. She refuses to divorce him, can't pay the mortgage, so she starts squirreling away money. And I told her, what you need to do is go back to this broker and say, I want my $5,000 back. And I said, the broker will tell you that's not how stocks work. And you say, yeah, I understand that, but this is bullshit. And you rip me off, and I want my $5,000 back. And he'll say no, and then you say, I want to talk to your boss. And if he doesn't give me the $5,000, I'll talk to the Secretary of State of Illinois. And they'll give you the $5,000 back. Has anyone seen Wolf of Wall Street? This stock was an over-the-counter stock. The commission to the salesperson is maximum by law is 50%. He could have made $2,500, taken the only $5,000 she had because she stopped paying her fucking mortgage and her husband's in jail. And she says, I can't do what you suggested that I do. And I said, why not? And she goes, well, he's a member of my church. Mutual fund expenses keep going up and up and up. And the funny thing is the average mutual fund expense ratio used to be like 1.2. Well, the industry has found out when they raise it to 1.3 and they make 8-10% more money, no one takes any money out. So they raise it to 1.4. Nobody takes any money out. They've got a magic way to keep making more and more profit. They just keep raising the price. And nobody pulls their money out. So that's one of the problems with mutual funds. And 401ks are really bad at this because 401ks tend to have higher than average mutual fund expense ratios. I had a friend of mine that had a job in Chicago, and they hired a new 401k company. Like your company can switch your insurance, health insurance, which I think is bullshit, but that's a whole nother talk. They can switch your 401k provider without talking to you about it. And your money moves from one company to another company. And the new funds that he had a 5% load. He had already had $200,000 in his 401k. He lost 10 grand because the new funds had loads. He later found out that the guy managing all the new funds was a brother-in-law of one of the owners. And after he moved all the employees' money, he quit, made a couple hundred grand, and went and did something else. And so it's all legal. Unethical, sure. Immoral, yeah. Legal, yes. Expense ratios, like I said, are 1.5. That's the published expense ratio. There's other expenses that mutual funds incur during the year that they don't have to report to you in detail. So the total works out to be about 2.2%. That's why mutual funds on average, if you look at all the data, again, we're looking at data, underperform the market by about 2.2% per year over long periods of time. Sure, some funds beat the market sometimes, but as a collective group, they cannot. And the data shows that they do not, and they underperform by 2.2%. So people say, I'll get good mutual funds, right? There's data in Money Magazine, Kiplinger's Magazine, all these different sources, there's databases. I'm going to go do my research. Well, the first thing about the research, you don't understand that almost 20% of all mutual funds end up getting closed, and their bad records disappear. And the companies roll that money into the good funds. So when a mutual fund company tells you that 7 out of 10 of their mutual funds are 4 or 5 star rated, that's because they closed 5 of them. But they don't have to tell you that. You don't know that. It's a secret. Shh. Vanguard did a study called Quantifying the Impact of Chasing Fund Performance. Google it. You can find it yourself. Look at it. And they did 40 million flight paths, they call it, of different investments. And they did 2 different ways. They did one where you just buy a random mutual fund and you hold it for 10 years. And looked at all the results. And then they did you buy a random fund, and if it falls below average performance, you sell it, and you buy one that's not just above average, but is in the top 20 of that category. Not top 5th, not top 20%, top 20. And of course, you can guess what happens over those 10 years from 2004 to 2013. I think this is the graph, yeah. The red is picking the random mutual fund. This is what happens if you keep jumping in and out of mutual funds, always buying the best ones. Things in the market go in cycles. 3 to 5 years, a mutual fund does really well. They switch managers, they switch tactics, they switch styles, they close funds, and they do shitty. And so when it does shitty, you lose money. And so now that you've lost money, you buy something that has already done great, but it did great last 5 years. It doesn't predict the future at all. If anything, really, really good mutual funds predict that they're not going to be really great mutual funds going forward right after you put your money in them. So I, of course, say buy and hold. You don't have taxes until you sell on the bulk of your investment through capital gains, which is 15% for most people. If you happen to make, I don't know, $450,000 or more, you might pay 20%, like Mitt Romney. But if you work for a living, you might pay taxes of 28, 33, 39, 39.6 plus your state tax. But the rich people make capital gains, and their tax is limited to 20%. Just a little side note political there for you, sorry. Most of these funds have very high turnovers, which of course, if you're in a taxable account, virtually all of your income is no longer capital gains, but it's income and your tax rates can double. Another reason you want what's called index funds. So there's the maximum tax. So in the average, the stock market makes 10%. We can argue about whether it's exactly 10%, but you can go look on Wikipedia, if you use that as a reference source, you can argue about that. Wikipedia S&P 500. Real actual data for the last 45 years of the S&P 500, which is the 500 biggest stocks in the country, they've returned 10.5% compounded. I'm using 10. What will be in the future? I got no fucking clue, but this is what I got. The average mutual fund, I already told you, underperforms by 2.2%, but I'm going to call it 8. The average investor makes 5.7. By the way, that was the best result from Vanguard. I picked the optimistic scenario. In different categories, you can underperform the market by 4%. And then if you're in a taxable account, and assuming you're paying 25% tax rate, you end up making 4.3%. So this is why people come to me all the time, especially in the last few years when the market's been up, and they go, I look at my portfolio, I'm making 3, 4, 5, 6%. Market's up 18% for the last 3 years on average. And they're making 5, 6, 8%. I had a lady told me she's making 9, which is almost the long-term average of 10. I said, but you're making 9 when the market's going up 18. She's making half. Now, the deceptive thing is that 4.3 is slightly below half, but over time, the effect is way more dramatic. 10,000 could turn into 174,000 in 30 years. But if you make 8%, or you make 5.7, or you make 4.3, you make 1/7 of the return over time because you made about half as much money each year. So that's the effects that have. And this difference between here, some of that's taxes, but the difference between this yellow line and this green line, that all goes to the company that sold you a shitty product. They make more money on your money than you make on your money. It's a beautiful business model. Justin is a guy that came to me about a decade ago, and he's kind of like my poster boy for how to do it right. He only made $40,000, but we decided, and he agreed to, and he found a way to save $10,000 a year. Now, he's living lean, but he's saving $10,000 a year. His family grew up with what I call the 15-mile lifestyle. They never, you go to the super Walmart, where else are you going to go? Why go anywhere further? And if you've got money left over on Friday from last Friday's check, you're doing something wrong. You could always buy some more beer and cigarettes or go to the goddamn boat. What are you doing with Friday money? That doesn't make any sense. Well, he started investing, and after 4 years, he had $45,000, and we hit 2008. Market went down 37%. His portfolio went down 37% because I had him invested in the market. He went from 45 to 28. And I got a little nervous. I know I sure didn't like opening up my documents in 2008, but he kept at it. He kept putting in $10,000 a year. 10 years later, he's put in $100,000, but he has $184,000. And he came to me and he said, Phil, I could live 4 years on this money. I have more money than any of my family has ever had in the entire history of our family. And so you can't live on that money for 4 years. You can live on it for 6 years because you're living on $30,000. And of course, you know what happens if he keeps getting market average returns over time at 10% a year. It's going to double every 7 years, the rule of 72 we call it. Age 39, he'll have 360. And age 46, he'll have 720 with no new savings. And if he saves more, that number's going to get bigger. He's on his way by mid-50s to be a multi-millionaire. And he tells me, he says, Phil, this is so amazing. Why doesn't everybody do this? It's not taught in high school. It's not taught in college. And the people you meet as investment advisors that are supposed to help you are there to separate you from your money without letting you know about it. Marco is another example of how to do it wrong. He had $200,000 and 2008 hit. Unfortunately, he wasn't in the market. He was in crappy mutual funds, and he lost half, and he had $100,000. So guess what Marco did? Like a good Catholic, right? Guess I can't use the same joke twice. All right. Note to self. He lost half, and he's been sitting there with $100,000 now for the last 6 years. In the last 6 years, the market's done great. It's up 187% in 6 years. He could have $287,000. And now he looks at that and he's like, I have 100, I could have almost 300. Now when do I get in? Now he's thinking about it. Now he's emotional about it. And when you're emotional about your investments, you're gonna make mistakes. It's not an emotional thing, it's a logical thing. The answer for him long term is to put the goddamn money back in now. Yesterday if you could, but today if you can't, do it yesterday. But if I give that advice straight up cold, and next year it goes down 25%, who gets blamed for him losing $280,000? So here's a little bit of stock market returns. Oh, People look at this all the time and they'll throw it in my face and say, Phil, look at this. 30, 40, 50, 60 years, the stock market made returns like this. And now, all this crazy-ass volatility is because it's way overpriced. And they're scared out of their freaking brain to be in the stock market. Then they say, well, maybe if I'm a little more generous, I'll give you this graph. And maybe that correction a few years ago was where it's supposed to be. And all of this is crap. Anyone know what's wrong with this? Our chart experts? Nobody? No? You're on? Logarithmic. Oh, that's beautiful. People do not live in a log world. They live in a linear world. This is the same graph on a log scale. Because when you make 10% on a bigger number, you get a bigger amount. But we're used to handing someone cash and they make change, if they can. I was in Arkansas and I bought something for $3.34 and handed them a 10. At your leisure, whenever the fuck you're ready. So the change was $6.66. It's a math joke. Yeah. And they wanted to know if I wanted to buy something else. And I'm like, no, matter of fact, I'm going to go get another one of those and give you another 10. Because I'm a sick fuck like that. So here's a possible trend line that I threw on there. This is not mathematically significant, but it's going to be something like that. And you can see over time, it makes about 10%. It made about 10% during World War I, World War II, Vietnam, the Twin Towers. It makes 10%. If you're a short-term investor, maybe not for you, but if you are 60 and you hope to live a good long time, more than 10 years, right? Got my fingers crossed, I'm hoping for that. So here's some quick results. In the last 45 years, again, this is from the Wikipedia page, go check it. The best is 37%, the worst is 37%. Pretty bad. But the nice thing is 80% of the time, on an annual basis, the market went up. And when we get to 5 years, we get this result. The best 5-year average is 28%, the worst is -2. Your 10,000 could triple, or you could lose 11%. I don't want to miss this. I'll risk 11%. Now you go to 10 years, and your money could go up almost 6 times, or you could have about the same loss potential. And when I talk to people all the time, they go, but this is the extreme. Yeah, so is this. This is the worst 10-year time period in the last 45 years. I gave you the worsts. They're very unlikely to ever occur again, but people freak the fuck out about this. It's like, what is it, Ebola, the virus from Africa? And Fox News particularly, they're tripping out because 3 people came to the United States and died. It's on the news every day, but they don't talk about the flu. A couple 100,000 people are dying every year from that. Not on the news. People trip about this. Now, when you go out longer periods, 94% chance positive returns, by the way, in 10 years, based on the data. If you go 10 years, here's your results. Your money could go up 13 times, or only up twice. The stock market risk virtually, carefully chosen word, virtually goes away if you wait long enough. Of course, I've got to put in past performance does not guarantee future results. I don't know the future, but I know the past. And when you go out longer periods of time, here's 1 year, worst and best, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Look at it spread. So if you're investing for the long term, I run this all the time, someone who's 32 years old, and they're in their 401k and they've got 30 or 40% of their money in bonds. No! You're making 2%, you could be making 10. Don't put it in bonds if you're under 30, if you're under 40, if you're more than 10 years from retirement. Take this little teeny risk, but you got a chance to make this. Ready to retire, Coretta came to me, and she hates her job, but she's got 2 more years until she gets full Social Security and full pension. And I asked her a question that blew her mind. I said, how much do you make if you retire now? Never given it a consideration. Every day she drives to work in tears because she's got a new boss and the company's sold and she hates every minute of it. But she never thought about what if I have enough already. And that's something that I really promote in my life. Get enough and then chill. You don't have to have it all. There's other people. Let's take care of them. Well, if she works 2 more years, she can make $92,000 a year, never working again. If she quits now, she can make $85,000 a year. So I said, what's your budget? $75,000 a year. Guess what she did? She quit. She quit. And the biggest thing she was worried about is that if I quit, what happens if I get bored? And then she goes, you know what? I figured out if I got bored, I go down to the shelter and take care of cats and dogs all day. For free, because I don't need the fucking money. But she's not crying on the way to work every morning. She's not. She's going to her garden, because that's what she likes to do. I don't get that myself, but that's what she likes to do. She plays with the grandkids. She sleeps in, stays up late, whatever she wants to do. It doesn't matter, because she can afford it. Anybody know this? Contact. Yes, this is where she's now, not dead or ethereal, but she's in her fantasy place. This is my happy place. Right? She's there. She's in her happy place. She doesn't have to work anymore, and that's fantastic. Keep it simple, silly. Invest in what you understand. Low-cost index funds. I can do a whole other talk about that. Critical thinking skills. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. Not that it probably is, it is. I had someone come to me once and they said, Phil, can you double my money in 1 year? I'm like, not only no, but you can't hire me. I'm like, what do you mean? I go, if you think that's possible, you're just a bad client waiting to happen. And he says, so you're saying there's no way for that to happen? I go, sure, go bet on black. You got a 48% chance of doubling your money in about 5 seconds. And it'd be really thrilling. And he goes, but I could lose all of it. Yeah, you didn't put that criteria on the first time, did you? It's like my wife came to me one time and she says, do we have enough money to retire? And I go, sure, we just got to figure out where to put the single wide. She goes, I have higher expectations. I go, that wasn't in the original criteria set. Here's a book you should read, Common Sense on Mutual Funds by John C. Bogle. I'll leave it up for a minute if you want to take a note or a picture. He is the founder of Vanguard Mutual Fund Company, the largest mutual fund company in the world. And to my knowledge, the only one that works like a credit union. When you invest there, you're a part owner there. Fidelity is the largest, and it's owned by a family, and they rake in huge profits. But it's a private company, so we don't know exactly how much it is. But Vanguard keeps lowering its costs. Average mutual fund cost, I mentioned before, 1.5, 1.6. If you have at least $10,000, they have funds that have expense ratios of 0.09%. And we saw before what can happen if you can make an extra % or 2 per year. This is the place to go do it. They don't pay me a fucking dime. They don't pay anybody. And nobody else will tell you in the industry because they don't pay anybody to tell you. Let's see. And I guess that is it. And I'm almost perfect. I got 2 minutes left, but maybe some questions.
Go ahead and take a couple questions.
Yeah, you guys like the kitties that kind of lighten the mood a little bit. I get a little stressed.
All right.
Any questions?
This one right there.
Okay, the question is about rebalancing. So one of the philosophies, if for example, if you buy 80% stocks and 20% bonds, and the stock market goes up a whole lot, you could sell some of the stock market and buy back in the bonds so that you keep that 80-20. It's something that you can do every year or two. With the bond example, maybe not a good one. What I usually try to do is I build people what I call a cushion. And the cushion needs to be as big enough as it needs to be so you can lay your head on it at night and sleep. But you need it to be as small as humanly possible because it's a drag on your returns. Bonds right now make like 2%. The stock market makes 10. But if you have a year where it goes down 35% and you can't pay your bills, who gives a crap about 20 years from now? You got bills to pay now. But rebalancing is something you can do every year to kind of rebalance the portfolio. Thank you for the question.
All right. I just wanted to say for the next question, Danforth University Center is catty corner here. They have a dining hall area that's open today, and they have like Mexican, Italian, stuff like that. So just when you look out the door, there's some like chairs and stuff. You go in that courtyard to the right, and you can get food there. Of course, you can go wherever else you want, but that's pretty close. That gentleman right there has a question. if you want to stay, that's fine. Of course, Phil wants you to, but I don't want you to miss lunch. So go ahead.
What about low income people with low income? What would you suggest?
Yeah, the question is, what if I may summarize, what if I don't have much money? The strategies are the same. The best funds that I know that are low cost to get into, a low minimum, Vanguard has some date funds like Retirement 2030, 2035, 2045, stuff like that. You can open up an account and start investing with as little as $1,000. Anything lower than that, I don't know of anything that's good that's not going to end up ripping you off, but that's a great place to go. Yeah, right here. The question is in reference to a 403B and why is he getting approached. 403Bs have some slight differences than 401Ks. I assume you work for a university, a college, police station, something. Okay. Often those plans, they can have multiple providers. And I'm assuming that what has happened is that your account has finally gotten big enough and you've been saving well and you're doing great, which is fine. But check them out. And if any one of them uses a index fund, consider them. One of the things I always tell people, ask the advisor how much money they make on your money. And since I mentioned it, I'll tell you flat out, mine's 1% per year. Now you can agree that that's too high, then don't fucking hire me, but at least you know what it is. When you go and ask somebody and they start talking like Bill Clinton, what is, leave. If they can't give you a straight answer, often they don't even know. They just know the more crappy stuff they sell, the bigger paycheck they get. Vic. Yeah. So the topic is leveraged ETFs. ETFs are exchange-traded mutual funds, and they have a definite perk that you can trade them within a given day, minute to minute, as the market's open. The problem is that you can trade them minute to minute during the day as the market's open. And humans are really, really bad at judging when to buy and when to sell, and all the data I've ever looked at means they end up getting less money in the end because of it. Additionally, he's talking about triple leverage, which means if the market goes up 10, you go up 30%. Theoretically, that's great, but of course there's expenses involved with leveraging it, and you don't just get triple upside, you get triple downside, and so you get a little twittery and a little nervous, and you jump in and out more, and maybe they can make money, but odds are they're going to make less by trying it.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Let's give it for Phil.
Grazie.